What's going on, everybody? It's Jamie,
And John,
and welcome to the A-To-Zed Reseller podcast. How's it going this week, John?
pretty good, man. Pretty good. The weather's nice, which is great. We got a nice sunny day here today. I'm going to go play some ball after this and try to ground some fielders and hit a couple softballs a decent ways, get it out of the infield anyway. But yeah, I find whenever the weather is nice like this, it just puts me in a good mood. It's kind of hard to get down about anything, really.
Yeah, I agree. I'm in a good mood. I think we were talking a little bit before we started. I'm just like beat that today for some reason. I've been getting up super early. I know you're a morning guy anyway, so you get up early every day. But yeah, I think it's just catching up with me. I feel like I'm never a person to say I'd like to take a nap, but today, if I had the opportunity, I could see a nap in my future.
Yeah, I could nap every day. I love it. I don't have time for it, but I could nap every day for like 2 hours. I would love that.
I would today for sure. So before we get into the questions, and I know we'll get into sales about halfway through, I have to say this week on eBay, or this past week on eBay, I think this is the worst payout I've ever had on eBay. eBay, besides maybe when I started, other platforms, fine. I don't see any issues with Poshmark. Depop's been really good for me. I don't know if it's just, maybe I've done something to deserve eBay shunning me, but I've had a really tough go here on eBay.
Wow, that's interesting. I was gonna say the opposite. Now I kind of feel bad for doing so, but
No, for sure don't.
no, I mean, to be honest, this is one of the better payouts I've had from eBay. In fact, there were some items that the money was still processing, so I didn't quite make my weekly payout on Tuesday. I thought it might, but I mean, I just got paid out on Tuesday, and I've already got like a couple hundred or a few hundred waiting because still some left over. No, this was a good week for me overall. I'd say, it was within my top 10 weeks probably of all time.
Wow, that's amazing. That's just how funny how people can overthink things and think, oh man, maybe there's something wrong with the algorithm. It's like, who knows, really, right?
Yeah.
Or why you get rewarded. It's not like I haven't been listing. I think I've been listing decent quality items. I've actually been listing more items, honestly, because I've been going through big lots of things that I've purchased recently. And then, some days I'll throw an extra 20 listings up where I'm used to just doing 5, but it's obviously not high in demand stuff, right?
Hey, you did something to make the AI overlords angry. I don't know what it is. It seems like you're doing everything right, but no, I mean, that's just it, overthinking things. Sometimes it's just a crapshoot. I mean, all you can do is do your best, and the sales will come. Some weeks they won't, but what do you do?
Yeah. I think what you do is you build yourself a nice little spot where it doesn't matter if you have a good week or bad week, right? You don't. We'll get into that maybe at some point, but you don't overspend and you have a little nest egg and the whole deal. But when you are starting out, there are plenty of mistakes you can make, and I think that's the first topic we're kind of going to get into here is maybe rookie mistakes. Maybe we're going to say some things we've done in the past that we've learned from, and really how to avoid the mistakes. Although, when you're first starting out, you always feel like maybe you know more than you do anyway. But what were some of the things when you first got into selling on eBay that you really kind of wish you didn't do, I guess, at the end of the day?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna start off with one here that I still get asked this a lot. And it's because we're in Canada and because shipping is such an issue. Now, I know that you do a lot of flat rate shipping because you've been around long enough, you've been doing this long enough, you kind of know what things cost. So even if you lose a couple dollars on one, you gain a couple dollars on the other, it all balances out. And that's fine and that's fair. And definitely, if you know what you're doing with it and you've got the experience, that's one thing. But as a beginner, maybe not realizing what shipping costs are really going to be. So for me, the biggest rookie mistake would be to, underestimate shipping costs, and not just the actual rate itself to ship something, but what your materials are going to be, the time it takes you, so the cost of your time to actually pack things up and be organized with it, even right down to, okay, so are you printing out that label on paper, or are you eventually going to invest in a thermal printer or something? There's just so much that goes on with actually shipping items that I think people tend to just kind of overlook it and say, okay, I got to make the sale. I got to make the sale. Yes, it's obviously important. You need to make sales or you're not going to make any money, but you need to understand the shipping costs and extrapolate that into what, the further things. It's not just the cost of the rate. So, for example, because I'm in such a rural area, I didn't expect that, say I wanted to ship Monopoly to Saskatchewan, that's going to be like $30. Like I would never think that a board game would cost $30 to ship that far with Canada Post. Now, if I purchase the label through eBay, I get a little discount. UPS has some great rates on eBay right now, so you can save a little bit. There might be some other options for you. But definitely just kind of understanding. So going right to the Canada Post website and going to the find a rate tracker and just doing some examples. Just throw some examples out there of different size packages, different weight packages to different postal codes around the country to get a good sense of what that might actually end up costing. Because number one, starting off, I probably would start with calculated shipping. So you're charging the buyer exactly what it costs. So that is one part of it. But then the other part of it is, it might narrow down what it is that you actually pick up to resell, because you might think, oh, cool, I can sell this board game for $15. But if it's going to cost you $30, or that's what someone's going to have to pay you to buy it and have it shipped to them, maybe it just makes it an undesirable item because shipping's going to be so high, either because it's just a long dimension or a weird weight or something like that. I would just, compact all of that into understand your shipping process all in one and how that's going to affect your business overall. And that would be my first point.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a good one. That would be my number one as well if I had to simplify it. I know when I first started, because I watched so much American content, I really believed that I needed to figure out how to do free shipping. It's not probably going to happen in Canada. I mean, the way I'm shipping currently, I could sort of put that shipping price or hide that shipping price maybe into the item, but then all of a sudden you're way higher than everybody else anyway. It's just in Canada, free shipping is nearly impossible. Maybe not impossible, but it'd be super hard. But shipping would be my number one. But if we're going to go into another one there, I would also say really understanding what you pick up or what you buy is going to sell. It's way too easy to pick up things that you think are cute, you think are fun, you like, but that doesn't mean that it's going to sell. So when you're first starting out, again, rookie mistake would be just buying stuff that you like. And I know we've talked about that on the channel before. I'm still guilty of that, to be honest. I'll still do that, but I know better. Yeah, for sure. I know better, but do I still do it? Sure. Absolutely. Because if I get stuck with something I like, I'm not going to be mad about it. But if you're trying to make money and get started, I'd say really be careful about what you're buying and make sure that it's actually going to sell for a decent profit.
Yeah, definitely. No, I agree with that one 100%. And really, to elaborate on that, understanding that it's going to sell. I mean, it's all about checking those sold comps on eBay, going in and filtering, like search the item. You can use Google Lens now to try to find an eBay listing that is exactly, the item that you're trying to sell, and just try to find that item, filter it by, see how many actives there are, maybe try to narrow it down, maybe by size. Size does matter if you're looking at clothing and things like that, but try to narrow it down, with a few specifics, and then see how many are listed. Is there 100 of them listed, but then you filter by sold and only 12 of them have sold in the last 90 days? That's probably not a great item to pick up unless it's going to sit for a while, but it's worth a lot of money, right? So then you kind of go in on the lower end and it's okay. You don't mind waiting. But yeah, getting an understanding of how quickly things might sell by checking that sell-through rate and checking the sold comps for value, hugely beneficial starting out.
Do you think you still have embedded in your mind something that really woke you up, like a mistake that you made when you were starting out?
Yes, actually.
And here.
It wasn't necessarily a huge mistake for me, but I should have done better to protect myself. So with eBay being such a buyer-centric platform, obviously they're gonna, if the buyer says there's an issue with the item, chances are eBay is gonna side with them and say, oh, well, that's no good, and force a refund or force a return or something like that. So you now have 24 photos that you can add to eBay. If you are selling something like, an N64 console or something like that, maybe it's a collector's edition blue N64 console from '96. It's in the box, and you write up a good description of all the things. Use those 24 photos. Show every angle. Show every little smudge, every little scratch on the surface, every little imperfection, and then everything that you show in the video or in the photos. Assume that your buyer is assume that your buyer doesn't look at the photos. I was going to say blind, but that doesn't make sense because then they couldn't read the description. But assume they don't look at the photos and that they're only going to read the description. Write it out there exactly. I think there's an unlimited amount of characters you can put in an item description. I've never come to the end anyway. So write a novel in there. Cover yourself. If there are any imperfections, list them. Don't pass something off or try to pass something off as very good. If it maybe is only good or something, it will bite you in the butt. I had an N64, surprise, surprise, that I sold for $550. I thought that I did a pretty good job of describing condition, but collectors out there are very anal about what they want on their shelf collecting dust. And long story short, I had to refund about $150. So yeah, I still made $400 off that item, but I was expecting to get closer to $600. And looking back, I could have just covered my own ass better by actually using more photos, putting better description and stuff.
Yeah, I agree. I look at the description slightly different, only because I'm lazy, to be honest. So I will copy and paste the title back into the description, but then I'll do like either a hyphen or bullet points with issues, or so it'll say, whatever this flaw is, or see photos for details and explain the flaws. But I'm not about to write a whole story about it. I just like to do a little hyphen, say the things that are wrong. If you choose to look at it, great. If you don't choose to look at it, it's there. So if there's a case open, at least it's there. I'm just stating it that way because I know it is a little, for me, if I had to write a description that was like 3 or 4 paragraphs, I'd be like, oh man, I don't want to do that, right?
Yeah.
Which is why they do have the new AI description. You can try to use that. I think it's hideous every time I've ever tried it. It's not great, but that's just another way, an easier way to do it, in my opinion. And I like doing it that way with just the bullet points. Something that I did make a mistake with when I started out, though, it goes back to shipping. I didn't realize that global shipping was such a big deal and how much it actually costs, because you hear, I'd watch Shed Flips and all these other US guys like that, and they're using the global shipping program, which is not available in Canada. So I just assumed it's not that much money. It can't be that crazy. If you've never done it before, shipping a pair of shoes to like Germany might cost you $60. And if you have it, if you have flat rates, or if you have it in there wrong, not so good. I know I do still have on certain items global shipping on, but I just have it as the buyer has to contact you for an estimate, I think is what the thing actually says. But yeah, that was just something that when I started off, I wasn't aware that it was so much money to ship. It's a lot of money to ship within North America, but as soon as you go outside of that, it gets to be pretty crazy pretty quick.
Yeah. And actually, it might even, this is something that a new buyer or a new seller on eBay might even need to decide is, if it's worth it to them to take the risk of selling internationally. Because I don't count the US. The US is fine. But selling things overseas, if that shipping cost is $50, $60, $70, which it is, if you want to put a tracking number on it, which you should at all times, wherever possible, then, the risk is, if you're a new seller and then you get an item not as described claim, or you get some kind of an issue claim by that buyer, you could be on the hook for, you might have to make a decision. Okay, do I want to pay the return shipping to get this item back? Or do I want to just cut my losses and just send them a refund and not worry about it? I don't think it happens that much, but if you're a new seller and you have a very limited budget where eating $50 or $60 might completely screw you for a week, maybe you don't do that for now until you get a little bit more comfortable with the workings of things.
Yeah. Oh, I agree 100%.
Yeah.
So this is sort of also a beginner tip, I think, or it could be a pro tip for somebody else too, I suppose. So when you're just starting out, and you probably are not going to jump into reselling full time, you're going to be part time. As you get more serious about it, you're going to want to list more, have listings up every day, but not every day or every week you have time to get out and source the way you would like to. So when you're limited on time for sourcing, you're really tight for time. What would you do differently to make sure you could still source?
Yeah, it's a little tough. I mean, sometimes there's just not a great opportunity, or things come up, and or life gets in the way and you can't get to the thrift store or something, or you go to the thrift store and realize, well, this place really sucks today, because that happens too. But one thing that I would suggest something that I do personally, if you sell on Poshmark, or maybe even if you don't sell on Poshmark, but you use Poshmark, I have sourced on Poshmark during live shows before. Like, I'll go to somebody else's live auction, whether it's a silent show or a live show that they're on, and just kind of take a look. Like, you don't have to sit around there for a very long time. You can go in your feed and take a look. Okay, what do these people actually have? You can see what they're going to be auctioning off and what those starting prices are going to be. And there are times when I'm seeing that people, are listing some decent stuff, or auctioning off things that maybe if there's 3 or 4 or 5 items that I think I can get from that sale, it's worth paying the shipping and the tax and to have it sent to me so that then I can resell it. If I can get each item for between $5 and $10 or something like that, and then sell it for 25 or 30 or something. So, while it doesn't necessarily help me immediately because I can't list those items that same day, I have used that method sometimes where I've basically scavenged off of another reseller's live shows. And especially if you look and they're like, it's kind of predatory, I admit, but especially if they're like a newer seller, or don't have as big of a following or something like that, because they may not have as many people viewing their live show. So sometimes it's okay to go in there and sort of snipe a few, and you get a little bundle coming your way in a few days.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. I've not really bought too much from Posh Live before. I have a little bit, some little bug biting me or something here, I guess. I have a little bit off of Whatnot, tried to source from Whatnot, and it's pretty decent, except for the shipping gets a little high. Even you have to buy in volume on Whatnot to make it worth it, really, to get it shipped to you. But the one thing I do remember doing, so I obviously don't have this problem so much now, being full time. I have the opportunity to source multiple times a week. The Goodwill bins usually can, sustain the entire week if I really wanted it to. But before, I do remember sometimes feeling like I didn't have enough stuff, and I would just go dig through my own closet. Usually had stuff that I didn't want anymore, I was on the fence about, but if I didn't have anything to list and I'm sort of wasn't really sure, I would take something from my own personal collection and list it. Like, obviously not stuff that I'm in love with, but like I was doing that quite often, where I'd have like jeans and stuff like that, t-shirts, maybe even some like jerseys that I had for a while that I really didn't care too much about, stuff that I thrifted, wore for a while. Like, like this particular shirt I got from a buddy. Like, maybe when I'm done with it, I might resell it again once I just sort of don't want to wear it anymore, which probably won't happen anytime soon. But that's always a good place to look when you're first starting out. You probably have a bunch of stuff, not just clothing. It could be just stuff laying around your house, stuff piled up in your garage. And you might be surprised how much value there is just laying around your house.
Yeah, that's a good point. Anybody who's watched my channel for a while sees basically every week in my What Sold videos that, I sold another game out of my video game collection or something. Yep. And, like, that does make up a portion of my sales. So even though I am listing new stuff every day and I've got a plan for that, and, I've got a photo on my phone of where I've taken a picture of what my drops are going to be for the next probably 3 weeks. Like, I've already got it planned, put away in inventory. And now every day I just go in and do that. But even still, I'll still have stuff in my own personal collection just kind of listed, and it sits in my collection until it sells. And I don't do anything. I don't have to do anything special with it. It's still in my video game room and just kind of sitting there. But if it sells, it's like, okay, cool. I'll go take that off the shelf, pack it up, send it out, and a little bit extra cash. No, that's a good point. And actually, when I just first bought my house 3 years ago, I found some stuff in the building that, like, I was just going to throw a bunch of stuff out because the guy, this is a completely different story, but the guy left a lot of stuff in the house and the building and stuff. But there were some really good, valuable items, like just sort of, home kind of supplies and like tiling and hardware and just various odds and ends that I didn't list them on eBay, but I put them on Facebook Marketplace. And man, I made like $700-800 just selling off the crap buddy left in the building. So yeah, that kind of stuff does add up and does kind of just sit there collecting dust for sometimes years. And while that was a different scenario because it wasn't my stuff, like I'm sure most people probably do have those items that like half box of something that they are keeping in case they need it, but they'll never use it. Might as well sell it, right?
For sure. And even like stuff that's broken and not complete, you can sell all kinds of things for parts and repair too. Like if you have a Game Boy that you're something that's been sitting here and you're like, it doesn't turn on anymore, I don't even know what to do with it. You've been thinking about getting it fixed, but it's just sat in the drawer for 10 years. Throw it on eBay. You could throw it anywhere, like Facebook Marketplace, if you don't want to ship it. It's always a good idea, like you said, to dig into your own collection if it's just sitting there and you don't really care about it anymore. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so obviously I do have sales this week, but do you have a particular sale of the week?
Oh, I sure do. This was a good one.
All right.
We've talked about this one before. I think I mentioned it to you earlier this week. I was a little excited to wake up to start the weekend with a sale of a Dave Steeb bobblehead, 2010 exclusive to commemorate the 20th anniversary of his his no-hitter back in 1990. So Toronto Blue Jays bobblehead, nice collector's edition. And so I had found two of these in Value Village late last year, and I did pay up for them. I paid something like $40, $45 plus tax each or something. Like I knew they were going to be worth some money. So I sold this one for $200, and after fees and backing out my cost of goods, it was like $110 profit. So it was a little bit of money to put up front, but I knew it was going to sell for, 3 figures and make some good money.
Yeah, that was awesome. I actually I'm pretty sure when you picked those up, I think you might even messaged me and asked if I wanted to buy it from you.
I did. I did ask if you were interested in one of them, and because I knew you were a Jays fan, so that must have been like September or something like that, maybe.
Yeah, because I do have one of those. It's not displayed at the moment in our room, but I have one in a box with the rest of my stuff, like from a long time ago. That when we finish our downstairs, I don't even know what to really call it. It's almost like a sitting room or a second room. It's just going to be a display room for a lot of memorabilia that will come back out. But I do remember you showing me, and I'm like, yeah, I've got one of those somewhere. I was surprised what it was worth.
Yeah, I've got a very small little Jays collection, little shelf, and my thought was, well, if it doesn't sell within a couple of years, I'll keep it, and there you go. But hey, instead I just made $110 profit.
Nice, that's awesome. Yeah, so I don't know. Did you see the last garage sale video I threw up where so I picked up a couple of jackets, and the Marlboro jacket actually sold right away after a day of listing. It sold on Poshmark, which I was happy about because it's a kind of a bulky jacket. So I'm like, I did actually put even on eBay and Depop, I put the shipping price up because I was going to have to ship it. I make $20, which for me is quite a bit. I don't normally charge that much for jackets, but it sold on Poshmark.com for $140 US.
Nice.
I haven't actually looked what the conversion is. I assume that's probably around maybe 170-ish. I haven't looked, but
right now we're at $1.35 exchange. So 140 times 1.35, you're looking at $189.
189. So yeah, I know Canadian, I had it listed for 204. I was actually on the last Sunday, so I was on the Scott Sell Stuff show, and I showed the jacket, even though that I know is going to be on my Monday video. And Adam, shipping vintage, he said when we're doing, he's like, hey, like after, let's talk. He kind of wanted to buy it, and he's He's like, "Oh, I see you've got it listed." At first he thought it was the F1 version. I think if it was the F1 version, he was gonna, I was gonna give him a good deal and he was gonna buy it. But he's like, "Oh, well, like list it, see how it goes." And yeah, it didn't last long. I was pretty happy. So
Right.
my sales, like I said, on every other platform have been solid. eBay, man, this last weekend eBay. Oh, to kick it off, to kick me when I'm down to right before payout, I had somebody message me with this same guitar, but without stickers, a Kramer guitar, not that valuable to begin with, but for some reason the one I sent didn't work, and instead of monkeying around with the whole situation, I'm just like, I'll just refund you the $40. Keep it. I've got another one. If you want to buy my other one, that would be awesome, right? Because it'd be too expensive to like send it back and whatever. So that hurt too. So it's like a refund right before a payout.
Oh, yeah.
eBay this week. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, I mean, that's just it, like it's funny because when we're talking about my girlfriend and I, we chat about the payouts because of course we use some of this money to pay off debts and then some of it to reinvest, just doing this part-time. So we'll have a chat about what the payout's going to be and what we can expect for a split and stuff. And then we were just, some weeks it's like I got to break the news to her, like, yeah, so eBay payout's going to be just about nothing because remember all those sales we made last week? Well, then all the labels came out. And so, like payout this week's pretty poor. But Poshmark, everything got delivered and all those funds have been released. So it's like, this one's way down, this one's way up. But it all balances out usually. It is weird how it works sometimes. You could have what feels like a really great week and then payout time comes around. You're like, oh, well, that's disappointing. But then the next one's right up there. It's weird.
Yeah, it's already been a much better week going into the end of the week now, or the middle to end of the week now. It's going to be a normal week for me on eBay. But yeah, it's just, it's a kick you when you're down type thing. So that kind of transitions nice into the next topic anyway. So like, obviously, when I started out, I was just in the same boat as you. I had a full-time job. I was reselling on the side. And you're lucky enough, I think, that you and your partner both enjoy reselling and it's something you do together. But there needs to be some kind of work balance. There needs to be time for yourself personally, time for your reselling business, and then you still have a job that that's where the majority of your money's coming in, right? How do you balance that personally? I know how I did it, but it's different in every situation, I think.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, well, the biggest key thing for me, especially like because I have a plan to be listing, like right now I'm listing, 5, 6 items a day kind of deal, somewhere in that sort of range. So for me, like I want to do that. I want to commit to that. I've been doing that every day this year so far. That needs to be something that I just make as part of my daily routine, my schedule. And so the biggest thing for me to balance it is I don't worry about the thrifting too much because I can go out and I can source on the weekends and do a big bulk, stock up, especially where I'm doing clothing and I've got some good clothing stores next to me. So that's not really an issue, but I need to make sure that I'm allowing that half hour to an hour every day and not putting it off, not like sleeping in and being, oh yeah, I'll get to it later. Because guess what? Later comes and you're like, oh crap, it's 8 o'clock and I still need to do this evening and I still got to do my listing. So every morning when I get up, I mean, not every morning, but generally speaking, what my plan is I get up and I'm usually up like 5:30, maybe 6 o'clock or something like that most mornings. And I get up, I have my coffee, kind of look through to see if I made any sales, send out offers, that kind of stuff. And then right away, just get to the listing. It's the first thing. It's the first actual thing I do in the morning. I'm sitting in my chair doing my listings. When that's done, I still have, a good hour or more before my regular job starts. And I can get other stuff done or I can just relax the rest of the morning. But that's typically my plan is just treating it, even though it is just part-time supplementing my full-time job, I'm treating it like a job. And I'm treating it like, okay, this is something I need to do. I need to do it in the morning. I need to get out ahead of it and not like let it just drift because then I'll get lazy and get behind and not list today. And that's just it's a bad spiral.
Yeah, I agree. I'm in a similar mindset now full-time than I was part-time. Same as you. The first thing I want to do when I get up is get my listings out of the way, because then I can feel good about my day. And regardless of what happens, I'm like, I got my listings up. If I can't ship today, fine, I'll ship tomorrow. That's why you have handling time, right? But getting those listings out of the way was always key. And then sometimes, depending on, how the day went, I like to send offers out first thing in the morning, and then I might do it again at night before I go to bed. As far as when I was working, now this isn't probably not the greatest thing to admit in the world. I was doing a lot of my eBay work at my actual job. Do I think you should do that? No, it's probably not ethical. But I was not doing my job. I was just, when I was on breaks or had a little bit of downtime, I had photos on my phone and I would list from my phone. It was what I could be watching, Facebook videos or YouTube videos or chatting with a coworker, but I just chose to make drafts or do whatever, right? That was also a type of job. I did lots of things at that particular factory, but when I was in there at the end, you pretty much work, and then if you get your work done, there's nothing to do.
Right.
So like, you're just sitting around killing time. It was almost too perfect. Like I said, are there other things you could have did for the company? Sure. But, I'm not suggesting anybody does that, but there are plenty of opportunities like that, even on your regular breaks at work. If you're going to prioritize your reselling business, maybe during your lunch, you have a sandwich, and while you're eating your sandwich, you do your listings for the day. And that doesn't cut into your personal time, because when you do have all those things on the go, you definitely don't want it to overwhelm your personal life, or you're just going to resent reselling as much as you might resent your job that takes all your time away from you too.
Exactly. No, that's a really good point. And I know it's different. It's harder to find time in the day for people who maybe have to commute an hour to work, or for people who have kids and stuff as well. I can only speak for my own situation. I am fortunate enough to be able to work from home, and I've got my storage space just down across the street from me, so I know I've got a good setup. But yeah, same deal. If I'm on salary, I don't really have breaks necessarily, but I do have my lunchtime. That's that's mine. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll have something ready to eat for lunchtime, and then I'm going down, I'm pulling my orders at lunch, getting them packed up, then back to work, and then maybe I've got 15 minutes in the afternoon. Instead of taking an afternoon break and sitting down and doing nothing, I just run them to the post office, which is just 5 minutes down the road or something. So it's sacrificing break time, if you want to call it that, but it's not really, because then I don't need to do it in the evening. When work is done for the day, it's done. And unless I'm going outsourcing that evening, it's like, okay, I got nothing left to do.
Yeah. That, just you saying that just reminds me of working day shift at the factory, walking out of the building at lunchtime with a peanut butter sandwich in my hands, knowing that I'm just going to zip up the road, drop my stuff off at Canada Post. And that actually put me in such a good mood, because I felt like I was being so productive, and the things that I wanted to do at the time to obviously work towards getting away from the factory job, which I really have nothing. If you want to work in a factory, there's nothing wrong with working anywhere that you like. It just, to me, that type of lifestyle for the rest of my life was just so depressing. So that's one of the reasons for me why getting out of there and just having more control over my life was very nice. I am coming up, just I think at the end of the month here will be one full time of leaving the factory. So that's kind of exciting for me too, that I'm almost 1 full year into full-time reselling. For the most part, it went good. But the one thing, that is, I'm pretty happy about it. I was surprised. I kind of forgot about it. I keep getting notifications, from different social media things. I'm like, oh yeah. And I can just sort of see the buildup of when I was about to leave. And it was scary, and it was exciting, and it was a lot of things all at once. So it's kind of neat to see all those things come back, and memories and stuff like that. Yeah. So the last thing we wanted to get into here was cost of doing business, understanding basically your eBay selling fees or the platforms that you sell on. I know you are much, much better than I am at that, breaking down fees. I use an app called eProfit. So if I'm not sure how much money I'm going to make on something, you can run all the information through the app and it'll tell you. For the most part, to be honest, I don't care. I pick up things cheap enough and it just cycles out. So I don't deep dive as much as you do. But that being said, as much as eBay is a lot more complex, Poshmark is so much simpler. If I list a t-shirt for $20 and list it for $20, it will tell me exactly how much they're going to pay me. So it makes it like just dumbs it down completely, right? So there is no guessing with Poshmark, but I'll let you deep dive into eBay a little bit here because I know this is something you really enjoy.
Yeah. So, I mean, with eBay, like, you know, yes, fees are a big part of it. I mean, you can pretty much, as a general rule of thumb, guarantee that you're going to lose 15 to 20% of your sale price on fees. But that doesn't necessarily need to be a bad thing. You know, I mean, as long as you understand that, it's going to be fine. One thing that I recommend any new seller does is the first few sales, like you can go in when you look into you go into your sales, you can look into the fee structure. Like you can look into that transaction, look at the details, look at the fee structure, the details of exactly how they came up with the numbers that they did. And it'll say it was this much money at, you know, 12.5% or whatever that category fee is. And then if it was also sold by promoted listing, it'll also add that in there for you as well. It'll tell you, you know, like how much tax there was. In Canada, here's the fun part. We pay fees on the total after you calculate the shipping in and the taxes. So you could sell a $20 item. And if it costs $50 to send it to Yukon plus tax, you might be at like $90 now. Your fees are based on $90, not the $20 item you sold. So it's really easy to not gain what you think you're going to gain on some of those lower end items. So, you know, I mean, it's one of those things, like, it happens, and sometimes it's like, that's fine, it happens. And maybe that's where if you're using like a flat rate shipping, that maybe, you know, is lower than what that's going to come to, okay, you might get screwed a little bit. Or if you're using calculated shipping, it at least covers that and it's not so bad. But I like to go in on every single transaction and see what my fees were exactly. And then after you do it, probably the first, like, you know, maybe 10 times, like as a new seller, you go in, you just get a feel for like, okay, if I sell this for $25, my fees are going to be $5. If I sell this for $38, it's going to be, oh, that's probably like $7.50. So what I do is I actually guess nowadays, like when this is fun for me. Make it a game. Make it a game. Make it a fun little game. Give yourself some way to reward yourself if you're right. But if you see that your buyer has purchased something, but they haven't paid yet, take a look at it, how much it's sold for, see where they are, whether they're in Canada or the US, and guess what those fees are going to be. And if you make a game out of it and you keep doing that until you actually get used to it, you'll get pretty close. Now I can look at it and be like, okay, so when I'm filling out my sales sheet, even before that buyer's paid, and I just highlight it in yellow so that I know I need to change it later, I might write in $7.50, and then it comes back, oh, that was $7.46. Like, I'm not doing the math. It's just I've sold enough items at around that dollar amount that number is just coming to me. But I mean, yes, all of this fee structure is on eBay. It's on the website. You can go and take a look what the category fees are, but you're not really getting a true understanding of how that calculates after tax, after shipping amounts, after whatever else, unless you're looking at that fee detail breakdown when you make a sale. That is where you're going to get the best understanding of what that is. Because your category for clothing, for example, they might charge 12.35% fees on that.
Yeah.
But it's more than that at the end of the day. Like, it is more like 17% by the time you factor in all of those other things. So I don't know, just when you have a good understanding of what that is, then it helps you to realize, all right, I can't pay $10 for this thing and sell it for $25. It's not really going to be worth it for me.
Right.
but I could pay $2 for it and sell it for 18, 19, 20, and so it takes some practice. It takes a little bit of hands-on experience, but that information is there. Do the deep dive, make a game out of it, like I say, and sooner or later you'll just kind of know.
Yeah, and I think it is important to know, or at least understand enough that you're not losing money, right? Which is, there's some pretty simple math you can do. Like you said, you buy something for $2 or $3, you sell for 20. Chances are you're not losing money. Do you understand completely how much it is? No. But yeah, once you start paying up more and more and more, those numbers where the profit is so much more tighter is so much more important, right? And you're right, to understand those things is very important. And that is why, like I said, I do a little bit more lazier method. I use an app where you can punch everything in and it gives you a rough idea of how much profit you would make total. And it's simpler for me, but that's partially because, like I said, I know you do and I don't. You go through each thing and take a deep dive or a better look at what actually profit is made on each item.
I mean, look, if you just, as a rule of thumb, if you just allow 20% for fees on eBay and Poshmark, because that's what it is there as well. I mean, I don't know about other platforms because I don't use them, but if you just allow 20% for fees and think, okay, well, if I sold this for $25 and my fees are $5, and so I'm getting $20, is that enough for me? You can then look at your buy cost and say, is this good? So if you use that 20%, that's just kind of a bare bones, like sort of quick way of doing it, you're going to be fine. Deep diving like a nerd like me is optional. But one other thing I will mention is that I mentioned that we pay the fees in Canada on like the shipping and the taxes and all the rest. That is not the case if you're in Canada and you're selling to the US on eBay, because for whatever reason, maybe it's due to like the free trade agreement. I have no idea, but the fees are definitely lower when selling to the US, like your overall fees, because it's not counting the shipping in there as well and all the taxes. Like it's breaking it down on that base sale price. So knowing that, this is kind of advanced tier, but knowing that, then if you get an offer from somebody, you can look and see, okay, are they in Canada or the US? If they're in the US, you can be like, okay, maybe that's normally $7 in fees in Canada, but it's probably only $4 in fees in the US. Yeah, I can live with that. So there's, I thought I'd mention that, even though it's sort of advanced here.
No, I think it is a good thing. Like I said, I think understanding all those things is helpful for somebody just starting out. I could guarantee you when I first started, I was probably losing money and not even realizing it until you kind of do realize it when you're like, well, I'm making sales and I'm getting payouts. I'm doing everything right. Why is this bank account not growing as much as I thought maybe it could or should? And then when you look and you figure out how much you're paying for stuff and you start looking at those things, it's a bit eye-opening for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, do a baseline of 20%. Assume you'll lose that on fees and you're probably okay. All right, so we talked about a lot of numbers there, a lot of ways not to lose your shirt on eBay. The key takeaway here is that it's actually not as scary or as weird or confusing as, a lot of people maybe think it is. It's great to have beginner questions, of course, but, just sort of do that little bit of research, asking questions, things like that is always good. If you have any questions about anything that we talked here, or you want like a fuller deep dive, please let us know. I love nerding out and getting right into the numbers. I don't know how I would do that right in the comments section, but certainly let me know and I'll answer any of that a little bit deeper if necessary. But yeah, let us know what you think about this, and any other questions, we can answer them in a future podcast as well. So thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.